thanks for joining. Very nice to see you. Thanks for sending your resume over ahead of time, hypothetically, and for considering this opportunity at imaginary company ABC 123. So I have, just to give you a feel for what to expect from the interview, I have a few questions prepared. Reminders that an interview is a two-way conversation. It's not simply me asking you difficult questions and putting you on the spot. So feel free, if after any of the questions you have a follow-up question or would like clarification, or if you think of another example, feel free to jump in. Definitely a two-way street. And then I'll reserve a few minutes at the end of the mock interview to see if you have any questions about the hypothetical opportunity that we have at Imaginary Company 123. So before we jump in, do you have any questions, or are you feeling good, ready to go?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you for the opportunity for considering me as a candidate.
Yes, you got it. All right, so the first question I would like to ask, just to kind of warm up and to jump into things, is can you tell me a little bit about some of the analytical tools that you've used, whether in past analytics roles or in any of the courses or work that you've done up in your career up until this point. So give me a feel for some of the analytics tools you've used.
Gotcha. So some of the analytical tools I've used are just been Tableau, and as of last week, I've just been self-teaching SQL. I've been learning advanced Excel as well. As far as like not, I haven't used those tools in like a career purpose, like in a job setting. It's more so small personal projects just to get familiar with the tools.
Yeah, excellent. I know from my experience, Tableau, SQL, Excel, these are things that I'm in almost every day or a couple times per week. So that sounds very good. When um, when you think about like when you think about really getting a feel for Tableau, how have you gone about that? Have you learned, from peers, from videos, from YouTube? Like, what have been the channels that have helped you to get a feel for Tableau?
So I honestly just learned by fire. So I just downloaded Tableau. I had some videos pulled up, and I had like some fellow peers show me some projects and gave me some resources to kind of look at. And then I would find data sets about data that I'm interested in, and then just try to mimic the visualizations in the data that I found. So I am in a lot of video. I do watch at least one or two quick Tableau videos every day from the Tableau website, and then any other thing I can watch on YouTube. Or right now, I just completed like the Tableau Data Camp course. So right now, I'm going to be probably looking to do like another like intro to Tableau course. So I like to learn a lot by watching the same thing over and over again, and then just drill it in my head. So that's how I kind of just get familiar with the tool.
Yeah, for sure. And then when you think about SQL, I know different analytics teams have, different, in different expectations and how much they use SQL. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've started to learn, and maybe like even why do you pick that to
Sure.
focus on next?
Sure. So I started learning SQL because a lot of the careers that I'm interested in, business intelligence analyst, business analyst, data analyst, they all have some sort of SQL on there. So as of last week, I just started with the intro to SQL and data camp, and I just learned select from the different type of queries, the joins. Not really haven't done any like projects yet with this, just kind of getting an understanding and getting familiar with the interface. But it's just very interesting. So I just from my like looking and talking to people, like SQL is a definite skill I need to have, and so just working at that as well day by day.
Yeah, that's very good. And I find it impressive that I mean, it sounds like you're trying to learn some of these things on your own. That is a very, very good lead indicator of long-term success in analytics from my vantage point. Now, you mentioned Excel. So of course, the Excel is so nuanced, right? It's existed forever. There's so many things you can do. When you look at some of the data problems or analytics problems you face, what are some of the like components of Excel that you've used? A common example, right there, people talk about VLOOKUPs. So when you think about Excel related to data or preparing data to put in a dashboard or to do something with, what are some of a few of the common things that you've done in Excel?
Yeah, so outside of like finance classes that we'd have to use Excel, I just primarily use it to clean the data to get ready for Tableau. So for example, I would use the trim function to get rid of any extra white space to, for example, for my latest visualization, the product name were all lowercase. So I just used the proper function to make sure everything was all lined up. There's like thousands of rows. Everything was the first word was capitalized. But I am looking to take some data analysis courses in Excel just because Excel is so widely used and for me it's interesting and I like learning it. So primarily I guess to answer your question is just to clean data for now and kind of prepare that for Tableau and other sources.
Yeah, very good. And there are some people who have posted very helpful content online, and they'll kind of make the connections between functions in Excel and functions in SQL. And the ones who are the best at it help you to see that if you've written out, even you mentioned trim. So like in Microsoft T-SQL, I think there's L trim and R trim. I might be confusing it with BigQuery, and there might just be trim. But once you get the concept of like, I'm taking a function and I'm applying it to a column to try to transform in some way, it's very, very portable, and it becomes like exponentially less intimidating the more you do it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So like in Excel, you can use the data modeler where you can kind of get the ERD, so it gets your it's your I forgot the word, but I know the abbreviation. So kind of like to plan out your model, and you can kind of use it in there. And then like in SQL and then Tableau, like doing joins and unions, it's almost like the same thing, just a little bit different. So which is kind of just like blends into each other, I feel.
Yes, and yes, that is also another good leading indicator of success, of like ability to recognize patterns in different platforms. A mentor of mine, someone who I owe a lot of my success to, had always talked about, once you learn how one of these things work, the they're very simple. All the tools are similar, and if you think logically through it, yeah, you get the hang of it. Okay, great. So let's jump into the next one. This is going to seem open-ended, but I think open-ended makes it fun. So when you think about the types of problems that you enjoy, and this doesn't have to be in a work setting or in like a previous school or course setting, but what types of problems do you enjoy tackling, and why?
I'd say there's a specific type of problem. If there's an issue or if there's something that can be done better, I really like to understand the why is it done this way? How long has it been done this way? What's the cause and effects if we change one variable? What's this going to do long term? So I guess like to answer that better, I guess I just like solving problems where I have like free reign to figure out the issue. So for example, when I was in the military, we have something go off like, the commander's intent. So this is a commanding officer's intention. This is his end game, and then just starting at the end game and then working backwards. So whatever the problem is, as long as like I know like, okay, this is where we want to end up, or this is where ideally we want to end up. Now, how do I work backwards from there? And then just kind of just like figuring it out.
Oh, I like the sound of that. That is because what can happen sometimes. So we'll go on a small tangent here that I think will be valuable. What can happen in analytic settings is you start with an open-ended question, and as you start to dig into it, you realize, oh, my initial assumptions are completely not applicable here, right? Or as I'm digging in further, I find, oh, there's a different problem. I was looking for one thing, and there are actually these two other things that seem like they're more of the problem than what I originally thought. So that is, yeah, it's very important to try to understand like what's the intent, what's the goal, what are we actually trying to accomplish. And if your game, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but if you can think of, are there any specific examples, scenarios, recent problems where you've started aiming at one thing, and as you looked at it, you unearthed potential other opportunities?
So kind of like a specific Can you like rephrase the question? Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, that's basically like what you described with the like the commander's intent. Have
Mhm.
you worked on anything of the last few months, last few years, where you were originally looking in one problem, like, oh, I think the data is missing on this one column, for example. But then as you looked at it further, you realized that there were different other problems.
I see. Yes, yes. So I actually just helped this company I'm doing freelance business analyst work for. I help them build a pitch deck in Tableau with their slides of different numbers. So like their sales data, their EBITDA, and all that stuff. And then as I was getting the data, I was looking at different metrics, and then kind of I ended up discovering the reason why their sales for 1 year, I don't remember, was down is because the original data source had the numbers flip-flopped. So for some reason, I don't know how that happened. So I just went back to it like that doesn't make sense. And then I went back to the data source, edit it, refresh, and then it was fixed. So kind of like not like a business insight, just more like a functional insight. Like why is this like this? Let me start where I got it from, and then kind of manipulate it from there.
Yes, that is very good. That is kind of what I was looking for. I almost think about it like as an analytical person. I always want to have healthy skepticism of this is the question they're asking. Is there a problem underneath the problem? This is the data they're giving me. Is this data reliable? This is the source friends suggested. Is this really the best source? So I think you don't want to go too far to the extreme where you lose confidence in everything, but just having that initial healthy skepticism, I find helpful. And you sometimes find things you weren't expecting, and there can be good things, but sometimes there are opportunities for improvement. Yeah, so
Right, and
good.
and what I'm finding is like a lot of the times what the problem is really just a symptom, and that's not the real problem until you explore and dig a little bit deeper.
Yes. And oh, I had one follow-up. So I think you mentioned or implied a little bit of a finance background. You just used a financial acronym that not everyone in analytics without a finance background would know. What was that acronym? What was this EBITDA thing?
Oh, EBITDA, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
So let's say we're trying to like you and I, you join you join the team, and we're presenting, and this comes up, and we encounter a marketing executive who's never heard of you. How would you explain it to someone who you think maybe doesn't have the finance background that you do?
Oh, great question. So what EBITDA is, it's just kind of it's like all your earnings, like all your gross earnings before any interest or taxes or payments or any taken out, and then before any like any of your depreciation. So for example, let's say we have a factory machine, and you depreciate that at $1,000 a year for the next 10 years, and then your amortization is like your loan payments that you're paying back to your creditors.
Got it. Yeah, that's cool. There's And then, in a lot of the corporate settings I've been in, there are so many acronyms. People can it almost feels like you get style points for how many acronyms you can stack in the same sentence. So
It's just like the military. There's a lot of acronyms too.
yes. All right. So next, I want to switch it up a little bit, and let's look at, in a corporate setting on analytics teams, sometimes you have solo projects, sometimes they're cross-functional efforts where maybe other teams are waiting for us to do something, we're waiting for them, competing priorities, all that stuff. So can you tell me a little bit about a group project or two that or even just where you've worked with a few peers to try to get something done? And
Right. So yeah, so group projects, mostly since I'm not in an analytical role yet, I'm not too familiar like how group projects work, but actually in my last business analytics class, just figuring out, who wants to take lead, who wants to submit the paper or the PowerPoint, who wants to speak for someone who isn't there, what sections do we want to divvy up. So kind of just like figuring out there, like, what's everyone's timeline? Do we want to meet up and discuss something? And then just kind of working it from there, and then just taking the initiative. Like, all right, the four of us are going to meet at this time. Let me get a Zoom link out, get it scheduled, and then just like friendly remind someone like, hey, we're meeting at Zoom this time to discuss this, and just kind of take the plan from there.
And then in some of those projects, were there ever scheduling challenges, or did you ever notice that, well, like a couple things, were there scheduling challenges? Did you notice that certain people were better at certain tasks than others? So did you ever reshuffle the work based on, oh, this person seems particularly good at this thing? Or like, what were some of the things that didn't work in the group project? And then what did you or some of your teammates do about it?
Gotcha. So scheduling, I think we're able to get that ahead of time, like knock everything out ahead. Like we're all available at whatever time and day. So we'll kind of just take it from there. About switching roles, we didn't really switch much of roles, and the reason why is because if someone's not strong in a certain area, I just feel like well, let's build that up. This is a school project. This isn't like this isn't the real world where the stakes are actually very high. So kind of just working, like, for example, one of my teammates or one of my group mates kind of like struggled with the analytical part, and they wanted to do it. So I did the second half of it. So I just kind of talked them through the process. All right, this is how I did my half of the analysis. If you look at yours this way, maybe you can come up, with what you're trying to say, and then just kind of just like take it from there. It was only four of us. The group project was really small, so kind of just shuffling around priorities would have been too much in the time frame that we had to submit. So I just felt let's just work on everyone's. If you're weak in one area, let's just work on it, get it submit, and move on.
Got it. And yeah, speaking of those kind of areas where people aren't as strong, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask what is your biggest weakness. This is kind of a stereotype of bad interviews, and I'm definitely not doing that. However, when you think about some of the skill sets that you're building and the ones that you want to have next, what's on that list of what you're looking at next? So you mentioned getting some nice momentum with Tableau, that you're adding SQL to your tool belt. Have you thought about what those next like expansion steps might be, even if it's just doubling down on Tableau? Or like what do you think you want to do next?
I mean, long term, maybe learning R or Python. But for the positions I'm looking at now, it's not really required. So my goal is just kind of like, the Trinity, Excel, SQL, and Tableau, and just focus on those three things, build up on those, and then eventually get to a programming language. I don't see it now. Maybe for like a specific setting, but as of now, I'm just gonna double, triple down on those three, and kind of just take it from there.
Yeah, that's that makes sense to me. And it's worth calling out that the data analysis tool pack and solver in Excel, although maybe not as intuitive to automate as stuff that you could do in R and Python eventually, has respectable horsepower. Now, this is like, we don't want to go into this too much because it's a loaded topic, I think, within analytics communities, but what you're describing, there's a lot of statistical rigor that you can do with just Excel, not just Excel, but in Excel.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, no, I really do. I mean, I know a lot of people in the analytical world kind of down talk Excel, but I really think like I just think it's really cool just to use it. And I mean, like why not be better at, like, if everyone's using it, or if it's so well known, like why not, at least learn, the very good basics of it in case you do counter a problem in Excel. So for example, like the reason why I do want to be like super proficient at Excel is like, not every analytic problem needs SQL or Tableau. Like I'm more about like, if I can do everything in Excel, or if your requirement is for me to do it in Excel, like I'm not gonna like, overpower it with any more powerful tool than I absolutely need to, because I just feel like that'd just be kind of like not the best use of time.
Yes, for sure. And there's a component of less technical, less like analytically inclined teams often use Excel. So there's some portability across teams, and potentially trying to help teammates or build something simple and quick to just, to do some of the initial triage on a problem. So that makes a ton of sense.
And then like a lot of the small businesses I'm looking to help or already working with, like their data, they get it from Shopify or QuickBooks, and it's all going to be exported to Excel. So you might as well just be good at Excel, because that's where most, businesses are going to export their data to.
Yeah, makes sense. Then let's dive into the next one. People learn stuff different ways, influenced by different things. I know for me, I kind of over-index on, like, I like to listen to audiobooks, podcasts quite a bit. Now, when you think about, books, either peer coaches, mentors, podcasts, articles, like what are some of the things out there that have influenced your thought process the most? Maybe you can highlight one or two, and it can be in analytics or it can be in, how you approach problems. Like, kind of keep it open-ended.
Gotcha. So I'll just go with just a book. I haven't read it recently. I would actually like to reread it. It's called Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's about 19 pages, and I read it in the way he wrote it in the old English, and then the new English, and it's just like way different. So I would definitely recommend reading the modern day language. But basically, in the essay, he just talks about self-reliance. Kind of just not like you can't rely on other people, but you always be able to count on yourself. And taking that through analytics, through school, through my career in the military, to post military, I just know, like, if I can rely, if I can definitely rely on myself, if I'm the person that people want to rely on for me, like, that will just transform over into, when I'm self-teaching, being a good teammate, good, good, brother, husband. So as long as I'm able to, be self-efficient, like I can help anyone, and I feel like I can do almost anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And I think next, let's look at, so this is going to seem a little bit philosophical, but it doesn't need to be. So I don't know the best way to frame this up, but this is just fun to see how people think about stuff. So imagine if you were describing analytics, like in its current form, or your current understanding of it, to someone, say 50, 70 years ago, before computers were widespread. How would you describe to them what analytics is? Like, and it makes me think of the Charles Barkley quote, where Charles Barkley's like, analytics is just something people who like books made up that doesn't actually do anything. So, like, how would you win over Charles Barkley and or explain to someone 70 years ago what all these jobs and dashboards and SQL and what is all of this?
Okay. So I actually never heard that Charles Barkley quote. So just because I know him or know of him, I would say, I'd be all right, Charles. Let's look at your basketball data, or when you were playing basketball, right? By just looking at your data, what can you come up with? And I'm sure he'll say a non-analytical answer. Or am I surprised? I don't know. So then I will go for, okay, so what if we can look at ways, like, where in your playing years, if we looked at your data, we did some analysis, we could see where you could have improved. Maybe you could have won a couple more MVP trophies, maybe made it to the finals more often. Wouldn't that be worth exploring? And he would say, of course it would be, right? So the whole purpose and what analytics is looking at kind of like the current state, or the prior state of results, and seeing why they happened the way they did. So kind of taking like a descriptive approach to it, and then kind of taking that like lag information and then turn it into lead information, which is information that we can take advantage of and leverage for in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's great. Hopefully we can get Charles Barkley listening to this. If not, maybe friends of friends can encourage him to check it out, and we could win him over eventually. Then the second half of the question, around someone from 70 years ago, never seen computers. How did businesses make decisions before there was unlimited data and sensors and monitoring of almost everything, right? It feels like there's more data than we even know what to do with these days.
I would say probably, always starting at the end, or like, let's just say for a farm. I don't know much about farming, but let's say a farmer 100 years ago, How do they figure out, they obviously know, like, all right, I'm going to produce corn this year. This is how much it should sell for. This is the weather that at the time this year when I had a good crop and bad crop. So kind of like explain to them, like, you have all your crops and your cattle and you have this result or this intended result, right? Now, did you get there the year before? No. Did you get there the year before that? Yes. Now, what were all the different factors that contributed to, you know, passing or failing, getting the result that you wanted or not? And then, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That'd just be pretty interesting to talk some like brand new, like kind of like baby steps them do the analytics.
Yeah, makes sense. That's good. All right, and then as promised in the beginning, I was going to reserve the last few minutes for questions about the hypothetical job posting at a hypothetical company.
Yes. So kind of like one like big question I have, right? Like, is there like for training for the different tools or as tools progress, does your company like provide like like the latest software and features and tools, or like Tableau 20.1 just dropped. This is the new features. Like, this is, breaking down, all right, this is what the analysts are going to be learning. This is what you need to know. This is how it's going to affect, what we do here. So there's going to be like any like, training as the tools we use develop and to kind of continue building our skill set.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite questions to answer. So in hypothetical company, what we look to do is a combination of peer-to-peer coaching. So as if depending on how things go, if you find yourself one of the top candidates in the offers of interest, and you end up joining the team, you'll be assigned a peer coach immediately within our analytics group. You'll potentially get assigned a peer coach outside of our team to help you understand the broader organization. In addition, we'll have some very, very highly structured onboarding to get you ramped up, but leave enough room for flexibility as far as giving you a chance to connect with people more informally. And then we have some internal tools. Let's call them something along the lines of like LinkedIn courses. So we'll have some recommendations, and of course you'll get to shape and influence what you take as well. But we'll have a nice mix of people to get to know, tools to get to learn, and with the support of training. So think of Tableau and how many useful videos they release. But if you jump into a new role and there's a ton of pressure to like ramp up too fast, you might not have a chance to watch and then absorb and try to apply as much of that information. So we try to leave, a competitive percentage of your time to really apply against development, ongoing learning. And yeah, I think in fact that's something that I think is a differentiator for me as an individual leader, and in hypothetical company we work very hard to make space for that. So we also sometimes take 2 minutes to answer a question we could have answered in one, but we're all human. So do you have another question or two as we're wrapping up here?
Kind of like company like culture. I think that's very important to ask. Can you kind of just like real quick describe what the culture is there?
Sure. And then I'm realizing that I'm saying hypothetical company, like I'm not speaking for my current employer at all. We're kind of simulating this out. So yeah, in I'll just describe the culture I've always wanted to work in. So in the culture I enjoy the most is something that is collaborative, where I'm very confident I can brainstorm and bounce ideas off of my peers. It's also one that's very candid. So there's a book called Radical Candor, where if you trust someone and you know that they believe in you, they will give you helpful, actionable feedback much faster. So we work very hard to create that culture where the feedback is kind, it is generous, and it is candid, right? So that's what we work very hard to do, and that's what we expect from our teammates. So you don't always have to agree, but if you can thoughtfully present, like, oh, I looked at that and I saw your dashboard. I really just didn't know where to look first. I felt a little overwhelmed. That's okay if teammates share that with each other. We won't always agree, but bottom line is we work to create a culture where you establish that trust, you build the relationships, and oh, these other people around me, they want me to win too, and they're thinking of ways to help me do that. So as a leader, I work very hard to try to create that culture within the team. And I think one of the other things that I can do is for candidates who continue to advance through the process, maybe there's another round of interviews, I can definitely put you in touch with some of the folks on the team if you want to just informally get to know them and and ask them, what's it like day to day. Definitely happy to do that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, I think that wraps up all like the major questions I had for now.
All right, great. Yeah, and I appreciate the questions, and it looks like we're almost out of time. But thanks very much for considering this opportunity with Hypothetical Company, and we'll be back in touch as with the kind of next steps as we've mapped out how the process works.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you bet. See you later.